Amen, amen, ashe, and aho. Thank you very much, Davis. Thank you, Billy, for that beautiful song. Thank you, Deborah, for creating that opening. I am so full right now. It is an honor. It is an honor to speak with the Davis community. It has been far too long, but it is good to be back. This month's theme is going further together. And we're working on how to recognize our mystical we through the principle of oneness. How working together as this interconnected whole, we can create this world of peace and harmony and joy. But it begins with you. You are that single individualized point of God. And we can do that. We can lift ourselves, each other, and the world through the practices of compassion and forgiveness. So I want to talk a little bit about this principle of oneness. So oneness is not sameness. Oneness is the idea that we're all an integral part of the one mind, the one body, and that we're connected to each other like the organs in our body make up our one person. We each are those individual points that make up the body of the divine. And these individualized points, we are interconnected. We are dancing together. We are moving in concert. And when we bring the fullness and the completeness, the totality of our individual selves into community, when we do this, we move further, faster together. We lift the vibration of the world, and we can create a world of peace, of love, of harmony. We can create a world where there is no poverty and there is no hunger. We create a world that is filled with joy and is powered by divine love. And we have a choice to create a vision that becomes a reality of the world that we want to look in. But it starts with the individual. The individual lifts themselves up, and then they lift up the world. So in order to see our mystical we, in order to have this sense of oneness, we honor the gifts and the talents, the diversity of all thought of everyone in the world community. We recognize our shared humanity, and we understand that we are one. But sometimes, in order to recognize our oneness, in order to celebrate our expressions as God, in order to celebrate the range of diversity within humanity, sometimes, just sometimes, we have to take a step back. Humanity expresses as a fullness of languages, of culture, of races, of gender, expression of ages. And we say we're one, but sometimes we draw a circle that includes some people that fit our criteria, and then we leave other people sort of on the other side of that circle. And they are on the outside of the circle. So we say we're one, but we don't practice what I call radical inclusion. We don't practice radical inclusion. There are times when the culture or the language supposedly separate us, but sometimes it's a family member or a close relative or a work colleague that we don't include inside our circle, that they're outside. So don't ask me how I know that. It's a practice. And if we practice separation or exclusion, then we miss that mystical we and oneness. Our idea, it is elusive. So when that happens, that's the time for us to step back. We need to examine our own consciousness, what prevents us from honoring and celebrating all humanity. And we can use the practices of diversity and forgiveness in order to move us closer to that idea of radical inclusiveness to increase our awareness. So today's wisdom comes from the philosophy of the Bantu people, the Southern African people, the Zulu tribe in particular. And it's the Zulu word Ubuntu, translated as I am because you are. It's also interpreted as to be human. It's the belief of the universal bond of all human beings. So instead of a framework of coming from I think, therefore I am, this philosophy says, I am a human being because I belong, I participate, I share, In essence, I am because you are. We are one. Ubuntu recognizes that principle of oneness. So I've experienced this feeling of connectedness as I've lived and worked in Zimbabwe among the Shona and Ndebele people. And I'll tell you, one day I was driving out towards the countryside to work with a women's cooperative, and the entire school stopped to welcome me into the community. The elders killed a goat in my honor. I sat with the community, listened to their stories, ate with my hands a food called mealie meal, which is a little bit like grits. I listened to the dreams and hopes of the women and the men in that community. And then I went back to my office at Africare and I wrote up grants to help them expand their businesses. They welcomed me in. I belonged. I participated. But then I gave back. It's that law of giving and receiving. I shared my wisdom and my knowledge, and I helped the community. I am because they are. Now, I was able to recognize my shared humanity in other instances. So like once I was walking down the street and I lived in Harare, and I saw a couple of girls sitting in a park, and one was on the ground and one was on the bench practicing hair braiding. Now that's something I've done since I was a young girl in Florida. And I had that feeling of recognition, that feeling of oneness. It wasn't separated by language, culture, ethnicity, or tribe. There was no separation. I was just witnessing something that was so deeply woven into the fabric of who I am. Such an ordinary act, but it was an act that connected me to these young girls in this far away place and space. And so I saw that. Recognition. Recognition is one of the first points of compassion. We recognize another's humanity. So in order to practice this practice called compassion, so I'm going to get to the two practices, the practice of compassion and the practice of forgiveness. In order to recognize that practice of compassion, which most of the time it's like connected to suffering or pain. But it's asking us, compassion asks us to put ourselves into the place of another and then to act. So compassion is not just imagining, it's putting yourself in the place of another and then acting. A compassionate act can be as simple as a stranger opening a door for someone. It can be contributing to your local food pantry. It can be donating magazines to the incarcerated, having a clothing drive. It can be support of the unhoused. It's however spirit moves you individually to contribute to the advancement of the world, to help bring joy and peace and love into the world. So this practice of compassion, this love in action, is to feel with another person and then to do something, to put your shoes in, to put yourself in the shoes of another person and then to allow yourself to feel with that person. So Tara Branch wrote a book called Radical Compassion, and she says that true compassion, we feel each other's experience as our shared human vulnerability. It's our shared human vulnerability. So when others make a mistake, or when even we make a mistake, we recognize that we are vulnerable and we can enter into an interaction with that person with a heart of compassion and a heart of forgiveness. So it's easier to have compassion for those who are like us. But in order to create this world that has this peace, this harmony and abundance, to create a world that works for everyone, to move further faster, we must learn to show compassion to those who are not like us, to those who hold different beliefs. Maybe someone's called us a name, hurt us, betrayed us in some way. But if we can show them compassion, we show compassion, we can send love to the wait staff, to the delivery person, to the teacher. Send love to everyone, because this practice of compassion includes everyone. And we can extend this practice of compassion beyond our immediate surroundings, to people in other countries, and even those we perceive as our worst enemies. Because there is another practice that says, what I want for myself, I want for my worst enemies. So when you can get to that place, what I want for myself is what I want for my worst enemies. Well, that's because there's only one of us. There is only one of us. And so this energy that I am sending out is coming back. There is no us and them. There is only one. So our work is to create this world on a foundation of compassion. And it's easy to do. sometimes, especially if there are hurts or misunderstandings. But sometimes we feel like, okay, I just can't move forward. I just can't do this. The injury, the insult, it feels too big. Sometimes, even to get to the practice of compassion, we must practice forgiveness. We need to be compassionate with ourselves during these times. In the book of Forgiving, Desmond Tutu says, there is nothing too big to forgive. And I know that may be hard to hear for some people, that there is nothing too big to forgive. But either we believe in that the power of divine love, or we don't. And if we believe in this, then forgiving is just another way of love in action. It's just another way of God expressing as us. So sometimes in order to move forward, we have to release the past. We have to tell a new story. We have to move towards forgiveness. And as we move towards forgiveness, rewrite that story, we move to another next level of consciousness. So today we're going to use this philosophy, this text of the South African people who had to overcome some of the most violent and brutal and racial social injustices of the 20th century. I mean, this is the recent past. And in the book of forgiveness, written by Desmond Tutu and his daughter Mpho Tutu, he says that without forgiveness, their country would have dissolved into continual violence, that they couldn't move forward without forgiveness. So they held Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which has become a model for racial healing. And at its core is the practice of forgiveness. So whether it's a country that needs healing, a CSL center that needs healing, a community that needs healing, a family that needs healing, or a work relationship that needs healing, Bishop Tutu and his daughter proposed this fourfold path. And what they say is that we recognize that we are deeply connected to one another. And whether we know it or not, we need each other. We've evolved this way, and our survival depends upon it. And when we are unforgiving, we will always pay the price for it. It is not, however, we alone who suffers. We are made to exist in a delicate network of interdependence. We are brothers and sisters, whether we like it or not. And to treat anyone as if they were less than human, less than a brother or a sister, no matter what they have done, is to contravene the very laws of our humanity. So to get back to humanness, our shared humanity, to go further together, what do we need to do if we are at a place where we cannot walk that path of compassion? What do we need to do to forgive so that we can move into that path of compassion, so that we can move closer to seeing our mystical we and to understanding that principle that no one is left out of the circle, that we are one? Well, there are four things that you can do right now if there is a healing, if there's anyone outside of your circle that you need to bring in, four things that you can do. And I'm going to put them in a new thought frame, because some of these things were like, Reverend Mignonne, we're not supposed to do that. We're not supposed to stay in the story, right? Because the first thing is tell the story. Tell the story. Tell it once. Tell it to a practitioner. Tell it with as many facts of the truth that you can, and name the hurt. Don't do a spiritual bypass. If there's something that's happened, tell the story, name the hurt. Do it those are two things. Tell the story, and then as you're telling the story, name the hurt. These are two things on the path to forgiveness. It is the recognition within self. So I suggest that if there is a hurt or healing that needs to happen, that it happens in the place of a practitioner. You have powerful practitioners in your community. They know how to see the truth of who you are while you are in that story. So we're going to tell the story. We're going to name the hurt. And the naming the hurt is just to get yourself out of denial. Something happened. Something happened. And it's the way you feel. It's your truth. If this happened with this person or this happened with that person, you name it. You name what it is. You're doing that in that safe place in the presence of the practitioner. But then we're going to grant forgiveness. And here's what I learned mostly is that in granting forgiveness, it is mostly that there's always some part of myself. There's always something within me that I need to forgive. And then I can forgive to the other, right? So tell the story, name the hurt, grant forgiveness. Now, why grant forgiveness? We're not like the Catholic priest sitting behind the thing, Who are we to grant forgiveness? Well, we are God. We're granting forgiveness. And what we're going to do is it's going to free ourselves because it gets you out of that loop of the story and the hurt. It gets you out of the loop of the story and the hurt. And so the fourth thing that you do after you grant forgiveness is you either tell a new story or you tell a new story and renew the relationship, or you release the relationship. And right now we are in the middle of that time of release. It's always preferable to build that new relationship, to move forward, because you can move forward stronger because you have a foundation of a relationship built on a new truth. But sometimes you have to let it go. You have to just let it fall away. And that in and of itself is to a healing, because there's still that individual point of God, individualization point of God. And if you release it or if you restore it, you're restoring harmony. You're restoring harmony. So Ubuntu says that we all have a part in creating a society that creates a perpetrator. Yeah, right? That's hard stuff. Therefore, I have a part in every conflict that I may find myself in personally, but in every conflict happening in my family, in every conflict happening in my community, in the nation and in the globe. So the hidden gift, the challenge of Ubuntu, is that we needn't walk the corridors of power to build peace, that each of us can create a more peaceful world from where we stand. I am because you are. So I create peace in my world through granting forgiveness, through practicing compassion, and through raising my personal vibration. Henry David Thoreau, he said that what greater miracle could take place for us than to look through the eyes of another for an instant. And so it's in this act of forgiveness, of reestablishing harmony within, and that harmony vibrates out. It creates a harmony within the whole. When we forgive, we begin with that recognition of humanity, that in each other, we see the face of God in the other. And when we release a hurt or renew a relationship, we can start from a different place and we can come together as a stronger community, as a stronger family. Because as we heal ourselves, because please do not leave out, don't leave out in any way, shape, or form. Please do not leave out self-compassion and self-forgiveness as you're going through this walk. Because the more love and compassion that you can show to yourself, you then can reflect it outward. But if you cannot show it to yourself, it's hard to give it to others. So take care of that self first. As we heal ourselves, we heal our community, we honor our oneness. So I know for sure that there is a world out there that we can create of love and peace and harmony and joy and abundance. And I know there's only one. And in preparing for this talk, I happened to stumble upon something that originated in South Africa. Now, it's definitely of the Christian tradition, but of course, I'm going to put my new thought spin on it. I am a year late, but at least I stumbled on it. There was a video out there from TikTok called Jerusalema. And it is a it's only like 4 lines. Jerusalem, you are my home. You know, you protect me, you guide me. And for me, Jerusalem is it's a metaphorical. It can be a metaphorical. We are not from here. So where are we from? We're from the one. And so, you know, you can call God anything. So right now, I'm going to call it Jerusalem. And what I saw, why I know, because I have this mental equivalent, I see it out there, that every nation in the world, every language, every color, all different religions, and even Palestinians, everyone was singing and dancing and moving through the continent of Africa, India, South America, and America. Oh my goodness. It is more possible now than it has ever been to create a world of love and peace and harmony, to raise that vibration. We have a way to do that. And it begins within and vibrates out. So anyway, I was just so excited because it sounds so pie in the sky, but it's possible. It is possible. So I want to just take this message into prayer really quickly. All right. So if you just join me in this vibration of love, divine love, peace, hope, unity, knowing that that is what God is, and that I am that divine love, and each person here is that expression of love, individualized as themselves with their perfect gifts and talents, all bringing it together. That this love, this divine love expresses as me and as you through the practices of compassion and forgiveness. And I just know that as we engage in these practices, as we forgive and love ourselves and we vibrate and send it out, that the vibration of the world lifts higher and higher. And I am grateful and thankful for this world of love, of peace, of joy, of harmony. I am grateful of this world where there's no hunger, no homelessness, no poverty. I am grateful that it is done right here and right now. And so I release this word into the law, knowing that it is already done. And together we say, and so it is.